I'm endorsing Graham Platner for Senate in Maine. And here's the reason why. Graham Platner is the real deal. That's my kind of man.
That was Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren supporting Graham Platner a while ago, and her and a whole bunch of Democrats have been completely humiliated because they knew exactly who they were supporting when they endorsed Graham Platner, and a whole bunch of new allegations came out accusing Graham Platner of some pretty crazy stuff. The Democrats, they're running around panicking right now as if they didn't see all the red flags this whole time. And it's getting so bad where even Mamdani is calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the Senate race up in Maine. And we have this right here explaining that Senator Elizabeth Warren, one of the more progressive Democratic senators who had backed Graham Platner in his bid to unseat Senator Susan Collins, a Republican from Maine, is calling for him to withdraw from the race in the wake of a new report alleging Graham Platner sexually assaulted a woman he dated back in 2021. And we have the statement right here from Elizabeth Warren calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the Senate race up in Maine. And I quote, "Now more than ever, we need leaders in Washington who reflect our values. There can be no tolerance for sexual assault. Working families are counting on Democrats to win the Senate election in Maine to unrig our economy and hold Donald Trump accountable." And this is typical of the Democrats. Whenever there's something wrong going, what they typically do is invoke the name of President Trump, as if President Trump's name is going to cause their voters to forget what the party has going on, like what's going on with Graham Platner. And it continued to say that with so much at stake, the best path forward is for Graham Platner to step aside as the Democrat nominee and address these serious allegations outside this Senate race. And Elizabeth Warren isn't the only one, because now we have Bernie Sanders calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the Senate race. And we have to remember that Bernie Sanders was one of Graham Platner's biggest supporters, and now he himself calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the race.
Breaking news, this just in moments ago, we brought this up, but now Senator Bernie Sanders releasing the following statement on the Maine U.S. Senate race. "I've spoken with Graham Platner about the best path forward for Maine. In light of these very serious allegations, I have recommended that he step aside." You know, when you look at this, Leslie, I read in Punchbowl this morning, party leaders believe Platner will drop out of the race as soon as today. I do believe this is imminent. You can't stand up against the entirety, pretty much the entirety of your party.
Just like Elizabeth Warren and a lot of Democrats that we are seeing, Bernie Sanders put out a statement instead of getting on national television and calling on Graham Platner to drop out of the Senate race. He's putting out a statement which should tell you how much courage these Democrats have. And here we have Bernie Sanders pretty much a while back. He was saying that he's going to do everything in his power to ensure that Graham Platner becomes the senator of Maine.
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Graham Platner is the next senator from the state of Maine.
And one thing we have to keep in mind is that these aren't the first set of allegations that Graham Platner is facing, because there were previous allegations regarding, his tattoos, regarding him sexting, cheating on his wife allegedly, and all these other things, abuse and all these other things. And even CNN right now is calling out Senator Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. CNN is calling them out for supporting Graham Platner, even though they understood exactly the candidate he was. Play clip.
Issue here with a lot of very prominent Democrats, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, two among them,
my kind of man,
who basically turned the other way at the first set of allegations. Why does it take a sexual assault allegation?
Right.
For them
to that point, I heard Senator Kirsten Gillibrand speak at the Aspen Institute last week. And when Graham Platner came up, all she had to say was that he was a strong candidate and was going to, soar to a victory. There was no even an acknowledgement of the New York Times report of the Nazi tattoo. And if you all will remember, this is the same senator who was called the Me Too senator, in part because she led the charge against Al Franken in the Senate.
That was CNN's Abby Phillips calling out Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren for their apparent hypocrisy. But at the end of the day, CNN has been protecting Graham Platner as well, because we have an interview where CNN conducted of the recent accuser, but they did not air that interview until Politico actually reported on the story, even though they filmed that interview months ago. which should tell you everything that you need to know about CNN. And here we have Mamdani calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the Senate race. And this should tell you everything that you need to know about the Democratic Party, where the Democrat Party is right now.
I wanted to ask, given that you have a sort of ascendant role in the Democratic Party, could you talk about the Maine Senate race? Do you think that Graham Platner should drop out of the race? And do you have any intention of endorsing any candidates in competitive races outside of New York, El Said, or anyone else?
No, I believe that it's time for him to drop out of the race. And when it comes to my own endorsements, I've made 8 endorsements at the state and federal level. They've all been right here in New York City. I'm incredibly excited at the fact that they won their races, and that's where my focus is for now.
That was Zohran Mamdani, the new leader or the new czar of the Democrat Party. And he's calling for Graham Platner to drop out of the race. And you know, once Zohran Mamdani says something in the Democrat Party, it's going to happen. So I suggest Chuck Schumer and the rest of them actually call Graham Platner and have him drop out of the race. And speaking about Chuck Schumer, they released a statement and themselves calling on Graham Platner to drop out of the race as well. Play clip.
Congressman Ro Khanna is rescinding his support for Platner, and the Maine Democratic Party tonight is calling on Platner to withdraw. Lauren Fox is out front. She's live on Capitol Hill. And Lauren, as you're talking to your sources, what are they telling you right now?
Yeah, Aaron, we actually have some significant news that was just released by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. This is a joint statement between the chairwoman of that committee, Kirsten Gillibrand, and the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Here's what they wrote, quote, "The allegations reported today are incredibly disturbing. Violence, abuse, and sexual assault are absolutely unacceptable. Graham Platner needs to immediately withdraw as the Democratic nominee for Senate and allow Maine Democrats the opportunity to choose a new candidate who can defeat Susan Collins. The DSCC will not invest in the Maine Senate race if Platner remains on the ballot." So a very, very serious threat there from the DSCC, saying that if Platner does not get out of the way, they are not going to help fund this campaign. And obviously that is extremely significant given what you just pointed out. Democrats need to win this seat in order to try to take back the United States Senate in the midterm elections in just a couple of months.
That is a statement that Chuck Schumer and the rest of the Democrat leadership put out instead of getting on national television and telling us what's going on. And the Democrats, they're panicking right now because they need to win that seat up in Maine if they want to regain control of the Senate. They need to win that race. And now, if Graham Platner is no longer the nominee and the election is only a few months away, then who is the Democrats going to run? At this point, we can just toss the election to Susan Collins at this point because the numbers are looking great for her. And Democrats like Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, and the rest of them, what they're trying to do is to essentially cover their asses. Because whenever the initial allegations came out accusing Graham Platner of sexting, abusing a woman allegedly, and all these different things, what they did, they called Graham Platner to Capitol Hill to ask him a series of questions. And they released nothing about that meeting. And now, since we have the new allegations, they're releasing what happened in that meeting. And here we have the article right here. CNN is basically going to break it down. But the question is, why didn't the Democrats release what happened in the meeting in the first place? It's because they're trying to cover their asses. Play clip.
Article that reported on a meeting that he had with Senate Democrats. And in that meeting, Bernie Sanders asked him if there were additional allegations that would come out. Platner says there weren't any. Elizabeth Warren asked him, she said there's a difference between marital issues and sexual assault. And Platner agreed and denied any credible allegations of assault were forthcoming.
Who in their right mind would believe him in any answer he would give other than to say, yes, there's more that's going to come out? You're a guy with a Nazi tattoo who has this horrible report coming out in the New York Times. There have been rumors about this for a very long time, and they're there giving him the benefit of the doubt. That just seemed really odd to me.
He's got a point. And I think anyone with a few brain cells or with an IQ above room temperature could have seen right through Graham Platner. Because even regular Americans, right, saw exactly what was happening. Graham Platner was one of the worst candidates they could have put up, but they still went ahead and they did it anyways. It's just like Joe Biden. It's just like what they did with Joe Biden. They put Joe Biden in that position, and after he bombed the debate or the entire thing, they called for him to drop out of the race and said, oh, we didn't know that he was cognitively declining. They're doing the same thing with Graham Platner right now, which is why you see them releasing the content of that meeting conveniently yesterday. And that brings us to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below in regards to this entire situation. Also, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And if you can hype the video as well, I'd really appreciate you. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Thank you.